I do think that developments in pop culture can significantly influence movements in the financial markets. I mean, we're seeing Barbie Mania right now, the impact on Mattel stock value. And this pretty much exemplifies how pop culture can sway investor sentiment and consumer behavior. So pop culture phenomena, just like, blockbuster movies, celebrity endorsements, viral trends, these things hold immense power in shaping consumer preference and spending patterns. So, as consumer demand shifts towards certain products or industries driven by pop culture, it directly affects revenues and profitability of the companies associated with those particular domains. So consequently, investors need to keenly observe and react to these pop culture trends because it is a real thing. And they need to recognize the potential opportunities or risks that it may present for their investments.
I mean, Barbie Mania has been quite fascinating to watch, especially in the lead up to that movie, actually showing on our screens. You've seen a lot of social media posts, even brands coming on board with a lot of the influencers or people just wearing pink like I am right now. But this phenomenon, is it something new or has it just been kickstarted by this Barbie Mania?
I mean, seeing a trend like this being kind of influenced by, the release of something in the pop culture realm, it's not necessarily a new concept. I mean, we've seen it with the Star Wars franchise. We've seen it with the Beatles. We had Beatlemania somewhere in the 1970s. So it's definitely not a new concept. It's something that repeats itself every now and again. I mean, with the Barbie movie, this has triggered, the surge of demand for Barbie dolls and related merchandise. This has translated into increased sales for Mattel and profitability. So, I mean, the companies stand to benefit significantly from positive responses, driven by pop culture and driven by these sentiments. But these are trends we've seen play out, many times in history before. And they are very significant, as we've seen. Another example is the Game of Thrones franchise, the Harry Potter. So this is definitely not a first, but it's always very interesting to witness.
That's quite interesting, as you mentioned, that, a lot of people having an interest in the Barbie merchandise. I mean, do you see that particularly driving the increase in the value of Mattel shares? And I suppose, how long do you think this trend can last?
Absolutely. I mean, the increase in demand for this merchandise directly has an impact on Mattel and their shares. And we've seen this play out. We saw it play out even before the release of the movie. Just the anticipation of the movie's success already drove their shares up. People were already, rushing to the stores for merchandise. Retailers couldn't stock the stuff quickly enough. The heightened demand resulted in increased sales, and Mattel benefited. So it definitely has a very material effect on their financial performance. And right now, Mattel is far outdoing their competitor Hasbro. They're responsible for the Dungeons and Dragons franchise, etc. And it definitely shows. These trends, as you mentioned, they tend not to last, very long. It could last, 6 months. It could last 3 months. It all depends on how well Mattel is able to leverage, let's call it the popularity of the Barbie trend that they've picked up through the release of the movie. But I do see it being a relatively, let me not say short-lived, but it is something that will, lose steam as soon as popularity dies down and the next thing kind of comes up.
Which is a nice segue into my next question here in terms of how you see the importance of pop culture fitting in, especially when investors are analyzing market trends.
So I think the influence of pop culture definitely shouldn't be, underestimated. Pop culture, I think this is the thing. Anything that drives value is a very significant thing to consider when you're an investor. And consumer sentiment does exactly that. As soon as consumers rush towards something, or they have a high demand for something, or just everybody wants to become a part of a trend or a culture, then whatever it is they're associating with that trend is going to see an increase in demand and increase in value. So I definitely think it is just as material as when any analyst views a stock, whether it's gold, whether it's commodity based or anything else. But it's just as real in my opinion. So I definitely think that analysts need to take it into serious consideration, the same as they would any other asset class.
On that note then, what kind of opportunities and risks do these pop culture trends present for investors as you see it?
So as trends and fads in pop culture, emerge and gain traction, they can shape purchasing decisions. They affect industry dynamics. They create opportunities or challenges for companies. So investors who keep a close eye on these developments gain valuable insights into these consumer sentiments, and they can anticipate shifts in demand for particular products or services. So understanding how pop culture impacts various industries and companies can help them make very informed decisions and to identify investment opportunities. So events like this, such as the release of a blockbuster movie like Barbie, it can lead to short-term market volatility. It can impact related industries, and it can also present unique investment prospects for those who can capitalize on those trending stocks. So therefore, considering pop culture trends is a crucial factor in market analysis. So it's very important for analysts to stay in tune with what's going on, especially when it comes to the developments surrounding pop culture. It's something that happens very quickly, and you have to be on the ball with how quickly you kind of hop onto the trend and take advantage of the situation when it occurs, so to speak.